The thought that oil and gas are going away is something the public gets wrong. No energy, you're hungry and naked in the dirt, and food, water, and energy you can't do without.
Hello, everyone. I'm Ananja, and you are listening Oil and Gas Breaking By Show. Today's guest is Scott Tinker, founder of Tinker Energy Associates. He is a known educator and has been part of many energy policies discussions globally. What I like about Scott, he's often calls out for critical middle, not ideologist, not alarmist, but try to find something based on data realism, which is away from the complexity. And that's what we need today in this energy industry. Scott, thank you so much for joining me.
Anand, it's a pleasure to be here with you. Thank you.
Thank you, Scott. As we met before, and as I said, I really like when you talk about energy and how you broke it down to something which everybody can understand, even the people who are outside this industry. Yeah. So I'm really looking for our conversation today.
Great. Yeah, I am too.
As I mentioned, Scott has done a lot in his career, but today I'm a little bit more curious about Scott to understand what was the moment in your life when you think about energy is much more than just a production discussion or any technical problems.
Interesting. Yeah. I would say that happened in several different places and times. And certainly when you're young and you might have in the US, we're spoiled by energy, of course. But you might have a little blackout. Your power goes out for an hour or something. So we start thinking about that. But my first time that I can recall it is 1973. And I haven't heard these questions, by the way, so I'm bringing this to I was learning how to drive in Houston, Texas. And that's when the so-called Arab oil embargo happened. And the gas lines, the gasoline lines in cars, they would wrap around the block. You would literally wait for hours to put gasoline in your car. And that made many of us very cognizant about gasoline, this fuel that we're used to getting for a few cents, 20 cents a gallon back then, and putting it in, driving away. When you can't do that, when you don't have access to something that has become a staple in your life, something you take for granted,
Yes.
then it becomes very clear how important energy is.
Yes.
And that was probably the very first time it happened.
That's great. And when did you decide this energy will become a big part of your life or career?
Yeah. It's funny. My dad was a geologist. He's passed now, but he was with Shell Oil Company for 39 years. So I grew up with that. We called it, he worked for the Queen. And I went off to college to be anything except a geologist or energy. In fact, I enjoyed science. I was okay at it, but it wasn't my career path. It's not something I really wanted to do for the rest of my life. But I took a geology class my freshman year of college from a great educator who's also passed, Ed Roy. And that pulled me in. It hooked me into geology because it was so tangible and a puzzle. It was this 4-dimensional puzzle, the 3D part of the earth, but then time comes into it. And that really, I've always loved puzzles of different kinds, and that excited me trying to piece together history, whether it's, for exploration for oil and gas or understanding outcrops and the stratigraphy of systems, structural problems. So that's really when I'd say a big a fork in the road, if you will. Who was it? Yogi Berra said, if you come to a fork in the road, take it. So, you're going to go one way or the other. And that was definitely a fork for me, is deciding to stay with my major in business, but also get a major in geology. And that led down to a very different path.
That's excellent. So you have started really early, pivoting towards the energy business. That's great. During that journey, have you faced any bias or stereotypes you came across?
Yes, I would say the ones that I faced were more from white men towards everyone else. And they weren't overt in the sense of intentional or even cognizant. But as I felt then sometimes, but as I feel more now looking back, I definitely saw this was a male-dominated industry.
Yes.
And at the time, at least in the U.S., it was mostly white men. Okay. And that diversity has changed tremendously over the course of my 4+ decade career. I started in the oil business in 1982. So
Things have changed a lot.
yeah,
Or
things,
do they really change, or it's still same? Yeah.
yeah, there's a lot that's changed. There are components that are fundamental, and that's good. But certainly technology has changed tremendously. I was using pencils, coloring maps, doing lettering by ink, okay, on a map, no computers. There were no cell phones. Wireline logs were a fairly simple set. It was old 2D seismic data that we thought was the coolest thing ever. Medical technologies were coming into the industry. We were starting to use X-ray diffraction and CT scans and other kinds of things developed for other industries to look at rocks. So yeah, the evolution of technology has been remarkable over that period of time. The industry itself, I'm a traveler, traveled the world. I've been very fortunate to do that. Again, all over the U.S., but my first big international trip was 1982. I went to the Soviet Union for 3 weeks, and it was behind the Iron Curtain then. It was not Russia. It was the Soviet Union, USSR.
Yes.
Went to 5 cities in 5 different countries. 3 of those are now not part of the USSR, although one was Kyiv, and Russia's trying to make it part of it again, with the invasion in Ukraine. But that was the first big international travel, and it set off a path for me of seeing the world like that. So in doing that, I have seen a tremendous amount of change from where we were as an industry, but also where we are as a world. A lot more opportunities in parts of the world than there were 4 decades ago, but also tremendous number of people in the world still living without
Yes.
energy, economic health, without security, or they're transitioning from that into what we would call secure. That, let's call it economic disparity, is still there.
Yes.
And because there are so many more people now than there were then, the numbers of people living in that circumstance are even larger than they were in the past. So that hasn't changed, and it needs to. It's one of my passions, of course,
Yes.
is energy poverty, energy access for the world. And we can dive into that if you'd like to. But I would say technology's evolved, the human condition has gotten better in some places, but still a lot of work to do. And then opportunities for not forced diversity, but real diversity. I had 25 nations on
Yes.
permanent staff at the Bureau of Economic Geology, the organization I managed at UT for 25 years. By the end, I had like 3 on staff in 2000, 3 different countries. And when I left, 25 different countries around the world on our permanent staff. It was like a UN meeting whenever we would all get together. Okay. And
Very,
it's
very
awesome.
diverse.
It
Yeah,
was
very diverse.
awesome. Yeah. Just the diversity of not just thought, but educational background, of experience, of religious background, both your economic circumstance as you were growing up. You bring all that together. Extremely powerful. Not easy. I want to emphasize diversity is difficult. Some of those people hated each other in their home countries. And we
Yes.
come together and we're all working together on projects and things like that. So very, very powerful, but not easy. And those things are both true. Okay.
I have seen this industry myself. Like things have changed a lot. Like I started almost 20 years ago. Not like you. So still I'm learning. Still I'm learning, but I have seen things have changed. But there's some challenges are still same. Like what that it used to be 20 years ago. We will come back to this topic of opportunity and challenges in a minute.
Sure.
But before we talk about that one, like as you know, in this industry, biases are everywhere. Like when you talk about public policies, perception. So you have spent a lot
Mm,
of time in this industry. What do you see as one misconception or bias that
mm.
keep repeating itself even after many decades?
Yeah. Yeah. When you think about the external biases toward the oil and gas industry, or even the energy industry in general, they've gotten worse. There was a time, again, I'm going back in years, but I can still sing the Texaco jingle when I was a kid. You can trust your car to the man who wears the star, the big bright Texaco star, And my dad was with Shell. So these were things that it was a good industry. We needed the industry. There were people in it that had good jobs and they did good things for our country. And I've seen an evolution almost, particularly in the West, the United States and Western Europe, toward trying to paint the oil and gas industry as almost evil. Certainly bad. Oil
Yeah.
is bad. Natural
Yes.
gas is bad. Coal is bad. These things are good. And this binary thinking, this on off, good bad, clean dirty,
Yes.
believer denier dialogue, wherever that comes from. These are religious terms, right? So it entered in over the last 10 to 15 years and got quite robust. Actually, being in a university for the last 25 years and speaking at universities all over the world all the time, you see that bias toward certain forms of energy and therefore towards those industries. And sadly, it's not real. Some of the some of the strongest environmentalists, and I count myself in that I know, are in the oil and gas industry.
Yes.
You know,
The
we work
norms
in the
are
field.
like the norms we follow in this industry. They're very, very, very highest
Mm.
standards.
Yeah,
So
the
yes, the
rigor is high. Now I'll say that's in the regulated world. So again, in the wealthy world, we have strong regulations and we follow those. As we move out into the less regulated world, you see this industry represented by, let's say, other nations or international oil companies, national oil companies, and their standards aren't as high.
yes,
And that's what that reflects back on the whole industry. When you leave a site in a mess or you have a spill or and other energy industries, when you're mining with child labor, when you're mining with slaves, you're manufacturing in unsafe conditions. This isn't unique to the oil and gas or the energy industry. Again, that more tends to be more where you can't afford to do the regulations that are required to make those things cleaner and more rigorous. So you take shortcuts because that's all you can afford to do. The benefit of lifting everybody up into a healthy and wealthy world would be the environment gets better as well because now you
yes,
can afford to do that kind of thing.
yes,
But yeah, the biases are very strong. It's starting to change again. It needs to. I think people who were heavily promoting one kind of energy only as clean have recognized it's not.
yeah. It's not sustainable. I think you talked a lot about it during that last conference when we met.
Okay. Yeah, yeah, and I've spoken pretty consistently for many decades on these topics. Examples change and that sort of thing, but the physics and the economics drive. I don't think people understand really that. Well, they don't even understand where electricity comes from. You know, there's the socket. I'll put a plug in it, and we're good to go, and it's clean. And they
Yes,
don't really know that electron is being made over here somewhere somehow. And you can say, yeah, well, let's not use coal. Let's not, burn coal to boil water, make steam, turn a turbine, and run a generator because that's dirty. And it is. It has a lot of components to it, the mining
yes,
and the moving and the burning. But they don't understand that solar panel or wind turbine comes from a mine somewhere in the world that we
yes,
mostly don't control. And it's a lot of mining because the sun and the wind are not very dense, energy dense, which means it takes a lot of stuff to collect them and convert them
yes,
into a dense, usable form of electricity. So here's all the mining for the stuff, and then I make it into these energy collection systems. That's manufacturing, and then all of that is moving it, and then you generate an electron, and it goes across a wire, usually farther from a wind farm to a home, and 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 then it wears out, and those systems wear out in 20 years or so, and you dump them in the earth, and you do it again. So
yes,
it's not renewable, and I think that's really it's the false bias of misperception or misunderstanding, or perhaps some education that wasn't the words I've used for quite a while now. There's a difference between completely factual and factually complete. Okay. And
yes,
factually complete is hard. It means you're looking
yes,
at all aspects of a challenge and there are trade offs, there are pros and cons. You can find little completely factual things that make me feel good. And then I go off and feel good. But
yes,
when I look at, completely factual, I pull it into the factually complete world, the shine comes off and the reality kicks in. So I think that getting those biases managed and through education is very powerful, and it's happening. People are now
yes,
starting to understand that nothing is free, nothing is truly clean, nothing is affordable.
yes,
There's 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 pros and cons and trade-offs in this whole space.
Yes, and one thing I would like to add here, like most of the time when we are having this conversation, we immediately go on back foot. So I think we should have more open discussion. We need
Mm.
more open discussion, like instead of going back foot, we have to say, okay, what about this energy? Do you know where it's coming from? Like using those examples that that person could relate.
Yes, the oil and gas industry particularly has not done a very good job of communicating its story.
Yes, I
And
I
it has
fully
a
agree. I fully agree.
very powerful story to tell. Now, parts of that story need to improve. They're
Yes,
better than they were, and they can still get better. But that doesn't mean you don't tell a whole story so that people understand all the different things that energy does in our lives, which is everything.
yes,
No energy, you're hungry and naked in the dirt. And sadly, there are people in the world today that are hungry and naked in the dirt. They don't have energy. So you've got to tell that whole story and then continue to work on and improve the components that have impact. Those things are both true. They're not mutually exclusive.
no,
And I'd say part of the bias has come from a very quiet, almost, even the employees in the oil and gas industry, the younger people particularly, sometimes are ashamed of the industry they work in. And then I visit with them and find out why. And a lot of that isn't even based in fact.
real facts.
Yeah. And so we end up getting encouraged to be proud of the industry you're in. All the things that it does, all the healthcare, all the food systems, all our clean water systems, our shelter, the basics of life are made better by energy. So
Yes,
it truly lifts the world up,
yes.
and nothing else. It is a foundational piece of our lives along with food and water. Food, water, and energy, you can't do without these.
I fully agree. Fully agree. Let's bring this topic to you. So, was there any bias in your early life or early career that you had to unlearn or question later?
Yeah. Well, there are lots of different levels of that. I mean, I didn't want to be a scientist. I was kind of biased that scientists were boring and couldn't speak. And so, yeah, I think that's not real. Some of them are brilliant and they don't want to speak, and they're very exciting. And so the whole field, I've had to kind of rethink it, and I've become one. I've become the thing that I didn't think I would go do. Certainly, um, again, working both across gender and geographic biases, bringing all that together, which I've made the last 25 years of my career doing, promoting that is opportunities. But those are real. Not everybody has the same opportunity set, for sure.
Yeah.
And it's important that the world isn't fair. Let's not pretend like things are fair, but the opportunities need to be there so that those who have the fire in their belly, the ambition, the drive, can go take those opportunities and move forward with them and succeed in ways that they want to. So um, I'm a non-recovering workaholic. I probably always will be. So I was personally biased against people who didn't do the same level of work that I did, which commonly meant the number of hours or time. Well, that was wrong too. My personal bias. Some of them actually were probably more wisely focused on other important things in their lives. Their work mattered and they did it well, but it wasn't everything in their life. And so I have to remove that bias and say just because they don't want to make the sacrifices that I did,
Yes.
we could go on. I could probably talk on hours for the various biases
No,
that
but
they come to my head. Yeah,
that's really great. Like you, because there's opportunity to reflect, about that bias, and as you
yeah,
already reflected multiple things, like from
yeah,
what you wanted to be and what you become,
yeah,
also about the possession, about some other people because they had a different working style. So, and I think that's
yeah,
true for many of us.
yes, yeah. Yes, it's very important, and different careers too. Some people go in to the law. Some people go into government, politics, and otherwise regulatory. Some go into the arts, and all of these things. And I could keep going. Education. They're all critical to a healthy society.
Makes
Just
sense.
because somebody isn't doing something in our own field, they're still contributing a lot of value to a healthy society. And I think we all need to get past those biases. Every profession, if you will, from a dancer to an artist to a teacher to a politician, to a lawyer, to a scientist. We all contribute in our own ways, and they're important. So let's kind of take the judgment down just a little bit and find some humility,
Yes.
because we all have plenty to be humble about.
Yes.
I'm the lead candidate for that. If I were to look back, something I would change: listen a lot more and be a lot more humble when I was younger. Yeah, I knew everything.
But you learn over the time, you learn from your experience. Yeah.
You do, you do, and so that's part of the learning process. But sometimes people say, "Well, what would you do different?" If I really truly could have that understanding and go back and listen more and be more humble and collect more than I shared, I would retool that, because I missed some opportunities for really truly deep educational learning from the experience of people that may not have been like me or my style, but had a lot to share. And I
Yes.
got some of it too. I'm not trying to, but
Yeah.
that's something I think we could all probably learn from.
Yes. Yeah. Makes sense. Like we
Yeah.
talk about that bias. We are not in rapid fire round, but I want to ask you one question. Like
Mhm.
when you talk to non-oil and gas audience, what one bias that surprised you the most?
Well, there's, I don't know if it's a bias. I mean, there's a certain level just of lack of knowledge, and
Okay.
some people
Okay.
call
Yeah.
it ignorance. Yeah, misconception or ignorance. I mean, people truly don't know what oil or natural gas are. They think it's in big pools under the earth. They think that the industry controls the price of oil, controls the price, and manipulates everybody. They're biased that the industry gets all these giant subsidies, right? That
Yes.
shouldn't get. I mean, there's just a series of misinformation towards this industry that have been propagated by those who truly want it to go away and don't know. Again, they're biased against it until they're living their lives just completely enabled by the oil and gas industry. And I'm not talking about just their transportation, but a lot of
Yes,
them
you're right.
fly and drive, all that kind of stuff. But more, yeah, the clothes that they're wearing, the medicines that they take, the makeup that they put on, it just all their computer technologies, their cars, their electric vehicles. I have a great picture of
Everything.
a
Everything.
Tesla that says, a Tesla license plate says no oil, and I laugh. I think, well, there must no tires or no plastics or no electronics in this
Yeah.
car. I mean, there's oil throughout the car.
Definitely. Like, yeah, no, that's good because this is really funny. You mentioned about a few other things. They think everything is controlled by oil and gas companies. There is a pool under the earth,
Yeah.
and that's a source of oil. So there are different misconception. Like moving on, we briefly talked about opportunity and challenges that industry is offering today. So,
Mm.
what changes you have seen in last 20, 30 years? And if somebody wants to enter in this industry now, what are the opportunities for them?
Oh boy. Yeah, they're remarkable. It's an international industry. So if you're interested in global learning, it's a remarkable industry to be in, and you will get to travel and see a lot of the world. That's different from when I grew up in it. We were mostly a U.S. based industry. On the personnel side, I won't get personal, but my daughter-in-law is with Exxon for 10 years. Brilliant woman. They've had a little girl. Exxon is remarkably supportive of that whole process. Both pre and post, just in ways that, look, let's be honest. 40 years ago, if I'm working for Exxon and I say, hey, I'd like to take paternity leave, they say, oh yeah, you got it. You're fired. You're on permanent leave. See ya. And I'm kind of kidding, but kind of not. I mean, nothing like that existed when maternity leave was a few weeks, etc. So there's just a lot more focus and understanding now of the importance of the whole life, the whole
Yes.
family, the whole, you can call it whatever you'd like to. There's lots of words for these things,
Yes.
but that balance between your work and your life. And my work is part of my life, but I've seen that evolve tremendously, obviously. And then the learning. Young people these days, it's not a career in one company for life. I mean, part of their process is switching companies. It's just what's done. So you can go from, a midstream company, you might go from a service company to a
Mhm.
producing company. You might even go downstream. There's and then different companies within those sectors. A lot more opportunity to see different looks and feels and kind of find the thing that fits your stage of life at that time. That just didn't exist before.
Yes.
You
Yes.
signed up and that's what you did,
Yes. Yes. So
especially
now
my
there's lots of
dad.
opportunities.
Right.
Yes. And I think you already mentioned like it doesn't matter which background you come, there is always opportunity for to make it big in this industry because
Oh,
we need diverse aspects.
yes. I mean, now and on a lot of my friends, and I sit on their boards, start companies, right? They've started successful upstream companies. They've started successful service companies. They've started successful midstream companies. I'm on the board of directors of Howard Energy Partners, and Mike Howard started
Yes.
that. Here's a man, 10, 15 years younger than I am. He came from the Valley of Texas with none of his family had gone to college. Uh, he educated and came through, and he's running a large and growing midstream now. There are remarkable opportunities for things
Yes.
like this in the industry for those who have the passion and the creativity and are willing to take the risks. Now, on the other side, there's tremendous jobs. If you're more interested in a secure job and a paycheck and good benefits and challenging work, it's awesome. That said, there's volatility in energy. Okay. There's always going to be volatility in the oil and gas industry and all energy industries. And that's not unique to the energy industry. There's volatility everywhere, but it's part of it. So the thought that the price of energy goes up and down, the controls on that are very complex. There are going to be times you might be facing layoffs.
Yes. Right.
That's just a time to retool a little bit, maybe a little more education, maybe look at a different sector, be patient, and then you're back in it in a different way, and it's even better than it was. So save a little money for those downtimes. But I've counseled young people who have faced layoffs in the last 15 years or so, and I've asked them, "Do you love the industry?" And the answer is, "I love this industry. I don't want to leave it." Well, then you figure out how to stay in it. Let's think about that together. And
Definitely.
they have, and they're doing great in their careers. Others have said, it's okay. I kind of like it, but I don't like some things in it, and I really don't like this volatility, and I'd rather do something else. Well, then do that. But
Yes.
it's prepared you technically in many ways as a problem solver. And you
Yes.
can take those skills to many, many different sectors. And so I look at the industry as a nice place to get broadly educated about a lot of different things.
Makes sense. Lots of our listeners are students, mid management level, or also leaders. If you have to underline one habit and mindset that can help them to grow, what that would be?
Boy, so many things running through my head. A couple thoughts. One would be take nothing for granted. We contribute what we are able to through our work and through our knowledge and our experiences. So take nothing for granted. And a mindset would be to listen carefully to all, both those that work for you, those that work with you, and those that you work for. And we all have a boss. But we can learn from all different components of that. So I would say demonstrate that that curiosity, that quest for input and seeking of knowledge from everybody around you, and you'll be a better person for it, and so will they. Another, maybe a habit would be say yes. Say yes. If you get asked to do something or you see something that is of interest to you or there's an opportunity that comes by over here, you don't get, often it's just a few seconds go by. And if you miss it, you miss it. I would say yes. I'll go, I mean, obviously not yes to things that are
Which is
unethical or,
impossible.
yes, yeah, that violate physics
Yes. Yeah.
but no, say yes to these opportunities because you don't know where that's going to take you.
Yes.
And I've never ever regretted saying yes to something, even though it might have been challenging. I didn't know how to do it. It might have turned out to be something I didn't like at all, but that's good too, because now I know. So really, really take the chances, take the risks, and say yes. And it builds your own confidence in your own abilities, and also exposes you to so many things that
Yes.
you might not have done on your own.
I agree. I agree. You already hit so many points. So whoever is listening, I think you already highlight those habits and mindset that can help you to grow within this industry or also outside that industry. So it's
Mhm.
a good nugget for everyone. That also brings us to rapid fire round. Scott, are you ready?
Sure.
Let me know what comes first in your mind.
Okay.
One belief about the energy transition that's oversimplified.
That it's happening. It's not happening. We're not transitioning from anything to anything else. We're just keep adding new forms of energy because
Yes.
demand is increasing. So it's not oversimplified. It's incorrect.
Incorrect.
We are adding energy now. That's in total energy. We are transitioning in the energy mix. The percentage of each form of
Yes.
energy is transitioning. So we're seeing
Mix
going
change.
away from carbon
Yes.
toward less carbon. That's happening because of physics and economics. But the oversimplification is that we can just go from this thing to that thing, and it's a matter of political will. That just violates physics.
And we have many examples from Europe to different parts of the world when they had to step back.
That step back has been very painful for citizens.
Yes.
Okay, when you force things into the system that violate physics, it ends up hurting economically the poorest people. It's economically regressive because they pay so much more of their livelihood in gasoline and electricity. The proportional, when you see the prices are going up because of these poor decisions, it's not a good thing.
Yeah, makes
It
sense.
impacts lives.
No, one thing the public gets wrong about oil and gas.
That it's going away.
And I think we are listening this thing from last many decades is going away. It's not going anywhere.
Yeah. Oh no, look, my dad worked for Shell. He worked with King Hubbard at Shell Bel Air Lab. Remember the Hubbard curve?
Yeah.
Hubbard's peak. And King was right. 73 U.S. peak of conventional oil. He kind of nailed that. But I used to be called to these peak oil conventions as the guy who didn't think it was going to happen. And now they don't even have the conventions anymore. But we've seen the twin peaks of oil because of a whole new source of not the oil's not different. It's not unconventional, but the rocks are. So yeah, the thought that oil and gas are going away is something the public gets wrong. Now, we are transitioning to different proportional mixes of each of those, etc. And hopefully we're transitioning from using them in ways that other things could do an equal job and using oil and natural gas for the things that they're best for. So you're seeing that kind of change, but they're going to be part of our lives.
Makes sense. A skill energy professionals underestimate.
Communicate. Yeah, it's vital. You can't just do it on a text or Snapchat or Facebook or whatever X. People do business with people. You and I are looking at each other, but we're still on a screen. It'd be much better to be in the room with you right now.
Yes, you're right.
And so communicating is a vital skill, and it always will be. So I would say every chance, particularly young people, that you get to set those machines aside, and I'm not talking for a few minutes, for hours, and communicate, you'll never regret doing that.
No. And that's really, really important. One word you would use to describe the future of energy.
One word: dynamic.
It's always changing.
Yeah, it's dynamic. We aren't as smart as we think. We understand the basic physics of these things, but we don't know necessarily, even in a decade, what's going to be driving the system. I can have opinions about it, and I do, but it's a very dynamic. Energy is very dynamic. And so you got to like that. You got to like that ride. You got to like the excitement of change. And if you do, you'll have a wonderful time in it.
And one thing you already mentioned, this industry is not going anywhere. So you have to ride that wave along with it. Yes. That's really great, Scott. Really enjoyed all the conversation. And you did really good actually on rapid fire round. Like you were quick, and also a lot of things we discussed. If somebody is listening or somebody listens to this conversation after 5 years, what idea you want them to remember?
Yeah, I think the big idea that I would hope people remember would be this concept that we didn't dive into, but everybody in the world should have access to affordable, reliable energy. Every human on the planet. And it's a passion of mine. The idea that a growing economic disparity between people with, and everybody else along that spread down to those with none. That doesn't end well, Anand. That's
Mhm.
never ended well in any circumstance. It always ends in some form of revolution.
Yes.
So the idea that it's vital for everybody in the world to lift the whole world's population up to a level of energy security and energy flourishing, energy health, that's critical. And what does that look like? It looks like 50 megawatt hours and $50,000 per person. That's the average of the wealthy world today. The US and Canada are
Yes.
much higher.
Yes.
So that's 10 times what people down in the emerging economies have today. And it's not a few people in the emerging economies. That's 4 billion people. It's half the world's population that just don't have much, a tenth. So this idea of energy prosperity, energy flourishing, leading to economic flourishing, that's the justice in the world. That's the most important challenge facing our world is energy and economic prosperity. That's an idea I hope in 5 years, in 10 years, in 15 years, we are really, truly making great progress on.
I fully agree, Scott. And this energy prosperity will take away many conflicts that we have experienced in last few decades. So really well summarized.
It underpins, you know, so many other things get blamed on the economic disparities in the world, and they're real. They're correlated to them. So whether it's racial or educational or social, different kinds of justice, environmental, economic, it's not equality, but just economic flourishing really helps to mitigate most of those things, even basic needs of food and water and shelter. So it's just a vital piece that the people in the energy industry, I mean, that's what you do. Don't ever forget what you do. Okay. You lift the world out of poverty.
Yes.
That's what you do in the energy industry. You lift the world out of poverty and be proud of it.
That makes sense. We are proud of it. And I think more and more people will look towards industry from that perspective. So thank you so much for sharing all the insights, Scott. Anything to add here before we sign off?
My personal thanks to you. Thanks for communicating. Thanks for taking the risk to share voices.
Yes.
And it's that kind of thing that really is going to help us get there, Hanan. So thanks for inviting me.
Thank you. So to everyone listening, if this conversation has challenged any of your belief and bias, please comment and also subscribe to this channel. That's the way we will break all the biases, one conversation at a time. Thank you so much for joining me today. Keep listening Oil and Gas Breaking Bias show. See you next week. Thank you.